hospital in Las Vegas saw as many trauma patients in a night as most hospitals in our area see in a year. Breaking down the winners and losers of the special legislative session. Spoiler alert, the losers are us. A business in Denver makes room for the homeless. And teenagers look up from their phones and realize life is passing them by.
But it's really just upsetting to see that we're such a generation that's invested in our phones and this false fabrication.
Their pledge could be a challenge to the rest of us. Next. America looked at Colorado's emergency rooms after Aurora and could not fathom what they accomplished on that night. The ER doc that we all came to know after Aurora looks at the hospitals of Las Vegas and is astonished on an even greater scale. She spoke with our Marshall Zellinger.
Sunrise Medical Center in Las Vegas treated 180 patients, 120 with gunshot wounds. All of last year, University Hospital in Aurora treated 107 with gunshot or stab wounds. On the night of the Aurora Theater shooting, 23 patients. It's where Dr. Camilla Sasson used to work.
I don't think you realize how many people you see until you're done. And you sit back and you kind of take a step back and say, oh my gosh, what just happened?
She was actually an emergency medicine resident with Dr. Scott Shear, the director of emergency medicine at Sunrise in Las Vegas.
He said that they took care of 200 patients that night, which is mind-boggling to me because you can see 200 patients in an entire 24-hour period in the emergency department.
That's about how many Swedish Medical Center sees in a day, 200. University Hospital averages about 300 patients a day. Denver Health, about half that. Dr. Sasson actually gives credit to the public for helping save lives before they end up at the hospital. She's a proponent of something known as Stop the Bleed, and she wants anyone, you and me included, Kyle, to know the steps for finding where a bleed is, putting pressure on it, using a tourniquet if needed, and then calling for help, because that is what is going to save someone's life, because many times they don't make it because they've bled out by the time they get to the hospital. Here we are having a conversation. They had it after Aurora where they want police officers to learn these skills. Now they want civilians to learn these skills. I don't know if that's progress or the opposite, you know? I didn't go to medical school for a reason, but now we need to know this, and I just hope I never have to use it.
Yeah, like CPR, you know, maybe you could save a life. Marshall, thank you. Colorado's Democratic Senator Michael Bennet called the Las Vegas shooting domestic terrorism today as he urged universal background checks on gun sales. Two notes on this. Colorado is one of the states that already has universal background checks, and the shooter in Las Vegas had passed background checks. But to this issue of domestic terrorism as a phrase, the definition has become a point of debate, not unlike the definition of sanctuary city. Unlike the latter, though, terrorism is defined in a legal sense. In federal law, it's a crime that seeks to affect a government or to retaliate against government. By the legal definition, we have no idea if the Las Vegas shooting was terrorism, even if it's beyond a doubt that it has terrorized Americans. Well, we'd like you to hear another voice on this issue, though, that of Nader Hashemi, who leads the Center for Middle East Studies at DU. He asks us to consider just how quickly we're willing to apply the term terrorism before we know the motives, but when we do know that the perpetrator is Middle Eastern or Muslim.
So that double standard is what gets many people upset, this rush to judgment and this rush to extrapolate, to make generalizations about an entire group of people based on the actions of one member of that community. We tend to do that when it comes to Muslims. We don't do that when it comes to white people, and that's a problem.
Christopher Roybal is a name that we've come to know over the last 24 hours. He willingly risked his life for our country in Afghanistan. He lost his life at that concert in Las Vegas. For what? His mother pointed to the senselessness of the loss of her son, who had been living in Colorado lately. Roybal served in Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom. He was a dog handler. They searched for explosives. Most recently, he was working as a general manager at a gym down in Colorado Springs. He was there in Las Vegas with his family. They were going to celebrate his 29th birthday on Monday. Co-workers say he'll be remembered as a guy with a big teddy bear smile and laughter that caught on across the room. Christopher Roybal was 28 years old. Typically, when you hear from our political experts, Kelly Maher and Ian Silveri, they're hotly debating some issue about government or some policy or social discussion. They have strong feelings about guns. They also have strong feelings about the fact that personally, they're friends.
My name is Kelly Maher. I am a Republican, a gun owner, and a hunter. And in 2013, I actually opposed all of the gun control legislation that went through the state capitol.
And I'm Ian Silveri, and I'm a Democrat. And I actually was part of the policy team that worked on gun safety legislation in Colorado in 2013. And I do believe that as a result of that, we have reduced violence and saved lives.
So if I were talking to somebody who had different views than I do on the gun control issue, I think the most important thing, particularly now in light of what happened in Las Vegas, is that people stop attributing the worst intentions to the other side. There's no gun owner who woke up Monday morning and felt anything other than absolute and complete heartbreak.
This isn't very different from what my friend Kelly said, but it's sort of in the same spirit, but said another way. We dehumanize each other in politics a lot these days. It's really easy to sit behind a keyboard or sit behind a smartphone and fire off a tweet and fire off a hot take and feel really clever and feel really good. I really got that guy. I really got that gal in that debate. I think we have to do it with our arms laid down, so to speak. It's up to us to make sure that we can have a civil debate with the other side. So find a Republican if you're a Democrat. Find a Democrat if you're a Republican. Everybody find an unaffiliated voter and have the conversation in real life, face to face, over a beer, over a meal, not behind a screen. Maybe we'll get somewhere.
Governor Hickenlooper bet $50,000 of your money that Republicans could be convinced to make a quick fix to a tax error and to compromise on their interpretation of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. The governor lost that bet and your money in the process. Republicans in the legislature warned him that this special session was going to be expensive and unnecessary, and they did have the votes to grind it to a halt today. So no fix for the special districts that are losing tax money, like the Art Museum, the Zoo, RTD. Democrats are going to call Republicans obstructionists. Republicans will say they defended the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. So both sides get a great talking point for election year. So maybe the only real losers here are the rest of us. This Thursday is a deadline for 19,000 people living in Colorado, people who came to this country illegally as children. Thursday is the cutoff for them to reapply for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, DACA. Without the renewal, they face the risk of deportation. Our Kristen Aguirre looks at the last-minute rush.
But I don't quite remember actually all of the little details.
But he does remember the big ones.
My first memory was on the border, crossing with my mom.
Christian Solano Cordova is a dreamer.
I walked through this tunnel.
He was brought to the U.S. from Mexico when he was 3 years old. Under DACA, he's able to live and work here legally, for now.
I happen to be one of the lucky people who can renew their work permit.
Right now, dreamers whose work permits expire March 5th are up for renewal. Their deadline to resubmit for DACA is just days away, but that paperwork can't just have the October 5th postmark date.
It's meet someone's hands, otherwise they won't process it.
Christian works for the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. Now, the organization has held workshops throughout the state to make sure DACA recipients know how crucial this deadline is for their status.
They will lose their protection from deportation, their ability to work legally, their ability to contribute to their families and to their communities.
Basically, all of the protections that they had under the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals will disappear.
Nicole Meliku is the coalition's executive director. Now, she says for the DACA recipients who aren't up for renewal until after March 5th, there's not much they can really do.
There is no other recourse. There's no other remedy to extend DACA. Like, basically the program as we know it is rescinded and therefore dead.
And so are the hopes of anyone whose paperwork doesn't make it in this week.
We're being hopeful that people on the other side are compassionate and that they're going to live up to the deadline that they themselves set.
I'm Kristen Aguirre for Next.
Colorado's Democrats in Congress favor extending DACA. We told you here Republican Congressman Mike Kaufman is fighting to protect it as well, but he faces opposition from other Republicans in the delegation and in Congress broadly. There's a pizza place in Denver that's become the first business in the city to offer space on the outside of its building to a nonprofit installing storage lockers for people who are homeless. The lockers opened this week outside Sexy Pizza at 11th and Ogden. The project is the work of Denver Homeless Out Loud. This is just a small project to start. 4 lockers, combination lock on each of them. But for the people who are able to use them, the idea is that a small, secure space can be life-changing.
The struggle of having to carry all your belongings with you in backpacks or in bags is a huge struggle of homelessness.
He doesn't have to allow us to be here. He doesn't have to allow us to be able to use this space. You know, it's a godsend.
All the people who are chosen to have access to these lockers have jobs, so they need a place to store their overnight sleeping gear while they're out working and trying to get back on their feet. We hope this catches on. Remembering Tom Petty and the time you could see him at CU Boulder for the cost of a beer today. U.S. Special Forces have survival training. This Coloradan set out to teach them a special skill. And when teenagers are telling us we're spending too much time on our phones, we're spending too much time on our phones. Next.
Cloudy, windy, and cool again in Denver tonight, but how great was it to see the sun today? And that sunshine warming us into the 60s, place we haven't been for several days. We'll go even warmer tomorrow, but another weather system is headed for Colorado, and so there's a chance for showers tomorrow night into Thursday. Heavy weather will go south of us into the southern plain states, but cool air following this departing system will keep temperatures below average. Tonight there'll be some areas of fog on the northeastern plains, dry and clear skies out across the western slope. Last night's frost advisory had morning low temperatures and morning temps in the mid-30s. We will not be that cold tonight, but a little push of moisture coming in means a few showers over southern Colorado, and some of that moisture will move into the metro area Wednesday night into Thursday. Tonight's low out of the 30s into the lower 40s, a dry evening. Tomorrow, a mix of clouds and sunshine. Temperatures again in the mid-60s, isolated showers, a 30% chance of rain on Thursday. Temperatures are trending in the right direction. We're back to sunshine and 70s for the weekend. But next Monday, another colder storm could mean a rain-snow mix right here in Denver. And it's still snowing way up high across Loveland Pass now, while clear skies in southern Colorado. Kyle.
Kathy, thanks. We are fascinated by jobs that we never knew existed, which is why we met up with a guy from Woodland Park who's had a lot of jobs that you would imagine: carpenter, sheriff's deputy, landscaper, and one job that made us do a double take. He teaches Special Forces soldiers how to butcher and field dress meat so that they can eat safely while they are far from supply lines. Jason Nauert's been field dressing game ever since he was a kid. 39 years old, he decided he would turn his passion into a career. The Army contracted with him in 2014 to guide Special Forces troops on how they can butcher and preserve food that they buy or kill while out on deployment. Jason teaches them how to get the most out of the animals when food is scarce. He shows the troops how to smoke the meat, salt it, even store it underground to preserve it.
That I'm not a pointer. I don't stand above everybody and just point. I like get in it with them, and I show them and I teach them, like, this is the proper way to do things, and here's why.
So it happens that Jason is actually allergic to wild game, he told us. It's no big deal, shrug that out. He just carries an EpiPen with him in case he runs into trouble. So there is much more to Jason's fascinating story, how he happened into this and how he supports the troops overseas through his butchering and field dressing lessons at home. We plan to show you a lot more of Jason's story before it occurred to the next team that this is dinner time and maybe you don't want to see that right now. So you can catch his story on 9 News at 9. Get off your apps. Start interacting with people. Teenagers are leading the way.
I look at the more positive things in life that is around me instead of around other people.
Remembering the Rockies' remarkable run of a decade ago through the eyes of a man who was sort of accidentally along for the ride. And signs of my favorite season, Great American Beer Fest season. Next. Tom Petty is being remembered around the world. Rock legend passed away last night at the age of 66. CU Boulder is remembering him by sharing clips and photos from a concert there in 1983. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers played the Coors Event Center March 2nd. 34 years ago. Looks like KBCO was a sponsor. Reserve tickets, $10.50, or if you wanted to splurge and get the best seats in the house, $11.50. When Facebook launched, most current high school students were toddlers. They were in middle school when Instagram and Snapchat got big. And now, a group of those students from Littleton who have been marinating in social media all their lives are asking their classmates and friends to go offline. Not for dinner time or for a day, for a month. Offline October.
Social media really shows like the, I guess, ingenuity and just kind of a false reality, really. Everyone's posting their perfect pictures and posting their perfect lives and their perfect stories. But in reality, everyone's lives aren't all that perfect.
When's the last time you spent an hour without looking at your phone?
How about the last time you went a day without looking at your phone?
This all started kind of like after all the recent tragedies and events that have been happening. So I personally, and I know a lot of other people, have been really upset about it. So I went up to my mom and I was just like I want to do something about this to try and help people and not make this a thing. So she helped me come up with this idea because we thought it could really improve how we interact with each other and just our day-to-day.
The average teenager spends more than 4 hours on their phone each day.
That means checking your phone more than 157 times, sending out more than 208 Snapchats, and spending more than 34 minutes on Instagram per day.
Don't go on your Snapchat story and post the great night you're having. Go live it out with your friends. Stay off of your phones. Don't try to share your experiences with others just for the sole purpose that they see it. Do it so they can share it with you, so they can experience it with you.
Students are asking all of us to consider going social media free with them for the month of October. You'll see how it changes your day-to-day life. I'm not going to be able to do it. I do envy, though, the 1,300 people who have pledged to join them so far. If you're wondering where half of the next team is over the next few days, here are a few thousand hints. You'll find us at the Great American Beer Festival, the most wonderful time of the year. GABF posted this photo today. Preparations are finishing up at the Colorado Convention Center. More than 1,700 kegs of delicious American craft beer are lined up for us to go and perform quality control on them. First session is Thursday. The final two are on Saturday. If you go, feel free to come up and say hi to me, Marshall, Steve Stager, the rest of the team that's there. And please do be safe. Don't ruin it for everybody. Some perspective on Rocktober from 10 years ago from one of our coworkers who just happened to kind of stumble into the whole thing. Next. We are not asking any questions about the A-Line train today, but this would suggest there's another appropriate question to pose to you. Is there room on the Colorado Rockies bandwagon right now? We've been checking all season. It got sparse there for a while. I'm telling you to hurry. They're headed to the postseason for the first time since 2009. Wild card is tomorrow night in Arizona. I understand this town has trouble putting on orange and purple at the same time, but you can do it, people. Rocktober is here. The original Rocktober was one of the first great stories that I was privileged to cover here at 9 News. I had been here for just a couple of months 10 years ago. That play-in game was nuts. All the fans that poured out of Coors Field and went to the bars thinking it was over, only to come rushing back when the Rockies tightened it up. They had to stand outside of Coors Field waiting for those final moments and that exultation when they won, and everybody poured into the streets. I now present you with the much more collected thoughts of one of my colleagues with memories of covering the 2007 ride, Kevin Vaughn.
10 years ago, I was working as a reporter for the Rocky Mountain News, and I got an assignment that would be a welcome diversion from serious issues. I was sent to the Colorado Rockies San Diego Padres tiebreaker game to write a fan feature. That was October 1st, 2007, the first day of what we now know as Rocktober. And that one-day assignment turned into 28 days. I followed the Rockies to Philadelphia and Phoenix and Boston and all the way through the World Series. And when I think back on that, first of all, I can't believe it's been 10 years, but I'm just flooded with all these great memories. Memories of the baseball, of course, but also memories of all the fun people I met along the way, like the 3 crazy college students from Colorado who stood outside Fenway Park for 2 days to get tickets to the first World Series game in team history. Or the young father who was so excited after he caught a home run ball to talk about how he was going to give it to his little boy. That Rocktober ultimately ended in disappointment, of course, as the Red Sox swept the Rockies in the World Series. But it was such a fun time in this town. The streets were just alive with excitement. And now the Rockies are back in the postseason with a chance to write a new Rocktober story. And I can't wait to see how it turns out.
Well, that's the purple. Go Rockies. See you next time.